Cubes were cool in 2006 when Kia dropped this, the Soul. It was a direct competitor to the Japanese brands that had their own cube. In fact, Nissan even had a car called the Cube. And then we had the Scion XB, Honda Element, and a couple others that are very forgettable, and they're actually gone now. This is the only one that remains, and it's largely unchanged almost 20 years later. And I think some of that success was due to the genius marketing campaign they did. It was all about hamsters, of all things. Yes, hamsters were driving a car, and that's all it took for you to sell a car. And arguably, you could say this car helped save Kia in America and made it a powerhouse brand that it is today. So 20 years later, is this thing still cool and cute? Let's find out. So even though it's been about 20 years, the car still looks pretty fresh. It's more of an evolved styling. It's actually not much different than the original. Up front, you're centered with that new Kia logo, which I've mentioned before I really like. And the headlights have gotten smaller, which is a good thing, except they are still halogen bulbs. Drives me crazy in 2025 that we can't have HIDs on everything. There is an option to get that. It's gonna cost you a lot of money. I'll go over that in a bit. The only option really on this, it's essentially a base model, but there's a $500 tech package, which gets you these wheels. They are 16s, and you can skip the wheel covers, which I don't like. So these will work for that, and you'll get a couple tech features like cross traffic alert and a few other things. Well worth the $500 just for the wheels alone. Going out back, you have the long vertical taillights that this car has been known for since the beginning. And they deleted this giant Soul logo that used to be here on the C-pillar. So unnecessary. I think it's kind of tacky when I see it on cars. The only way to really know what it is, if you didn't know already, it's just this little nameplate on the back. No one's gonna brag about their Kia Soul and want it in big font anyways. Otherwise, this is a very compact car until you go inside, because that cube styling is very beneficial for both the front and rear seat passengers. Now, I've tested like basically every entry-level crossover and SUV, and I gotta say, this one, even though it looks small on the outside, is the largest on the inside. A lot of times I'm gonna bonk my head on this A-pillar when I'm climbing in and out. Not in this car. Plenty of room. In fact, I probably have like 4 or 5 inches above my head still. An NBA player could basically sit in here and be comfortable. Tons of leg room, and it's not just for the front passengers, the back as well. Now, I have not moved that front seat. It is set where I like to have it, and I'm 6'3", and I'm gonna climb in the back here and show you how big this back seat is. Enormous amount of headroom again. My knees are nowhere close to the front driver's seat. I don't know where this space comes from. You'd think the trunk is just gotta be non-existent, right? Nope, there's still tons of trunk space too. Check this out. Tons of space. You could easily have 4 people on a road trip. Everyone could get their suitcase back here. In fact, this is a card I used for a Costco run earlier. Handled that just fine. I seriously don't know what kind of weird voodoo they did to get all that space in this tiny little car.
Listen to that baby purr. It's a 2-liter dual overhead cam, multi-port injection, naturally aspirated, 4-cylinder engine, 147 horsepower, 132 pound-feet of torque. Now, that may not sound very impressive, but compared to its much larger sibling, the Kia Sorento I recently drove, this thing is a race car. That Sorento took over 10 seconds to get to 60. The Soul, just 8 seconds flat. It's also worth mentioning that the hood is held up by shocks, which you don't see very often in this price point. Heading inside, I didn't expect any premium materials, very hard plastics all around. But at least they tried. The design looks pretty good. Kind of the whole Kia line has this little, I don't know what to call it, fake diamond pattern, plasticky metal looking stuff. But you got your standard power windows and locks here. You got some door pockets. There is a little nook in there to put a water bottle. And inside, pretty nice design. The dash
is not overly large, which a lot of these small cars, sometimes the dash feels like it goes for miles. You got really good visibility here. You can actually see your whole front hood, and it helps a lot with parking. Now, this has the standard entertainment system, which I'll go over in a minute. Regular dials for HVAC, which I'm totally cool with. I don't need the temperature control. And honestly, I think these are a little easier to control the temperature than setting a temperature and wondering what the car is doing. Down below, there is only one single USB port on the base model. It's not that much to upgrade. I'm going to go over all that in a little bit. You can even get a wireless charging pad. They did put two 12-volt sockets down there for some reason. I don't even need one. I don't know why you need two. Bane of my existence, the CVT transmission. If you don't know about these, they're fine, they're smooth, and they're cheaper. So automakers in this price point, minus Mazda, have been putting these in all their cars, and they're usually good until 100,000 miles. Beyond that, I would not recommend a CVT transmission. Drive modes, there is a sport mode on here. It's the only other drive mode you can get on this one, and it's basically worthless. When it's paired to a CVT, it's all just fake computer programming and doesn't do a whole lot. Old school parking brake, which is totally fine. You don't need an electronic parking brake. I did spill coffee in here, and I didn't have anything to clean it up, which is pretty standard for me. I have the worst luck with coffee cups. In the center console, ooh, got some money, dollars, and a bunch of other junk, but pretty good size. Nice size glove box too. And the passenger side also gets a pocket and a spot for a water bottle. Something I really don't like is the base model of this car still has a physical key, but at least you have a weapon if someone attacks you. It's pretty cheap to upgrade to the no key option, which I would do because I get in and out of my car 10 to 20 times a day. And if you're fumbling for a key every time, it gets really old. So let's see what we got here in the tech. The dash looks a lot like the Kia Sorento I had recently. Kind of cool 80s retro style. I dig it. The tachometer takes a little bit of getting used to. It's kind of weird just seeing like a 0.7. That's times 1,000. So it's 700. Rev it up a little bit here. 2,000, 1,000. You get the idea. It's just something a little different. On top, you have your mileage range. P is obviously the transmission. That's because we are in park. And you get some other info here like trip. The last 10,000 miles, this has averaged 32 miles per gallon, which is really good. I drive a little bit harder. So since the last time I got gas, I'm averaging 30, which is actually right on the nose. It's supposed to get 27 in the city, 33 on the highway. And I've been doing a little mix of both. So I would say it's bang on. You should expect 30 miles to the gallon. Now, it also has a sign reader here, which I noticed doesn't work very good. It's supposed to pick up the speed limit signs, like pedestrian crossing, stop signs. It does pick up the stop signs, the speed limit signs. It's usually just going to have that double dash there, and you're not going to see much. As you can see, this has 19,000 miles on it. I've driven it over 2,000 miles. I went all across California on a road trip, and it's held up very nicely. So those are some of the menus you can get through here. And also, driver assistance is very important on here because if you've seen my previous videos on Hyundai and Kia, I hate their driver assistance programs. They are terrible. So I would tell you to shut them all off. Now, unfortunately, you can't turn everything off, but at least the beeping, which is going to happen a lot, put it on low so it's the quietest. Driver attention warning. This will drive you crazy. Lane vehicle departure. I actually like this one. So if the light turns green and you're just kind of fumbling on your phone, let's be honest, you do it too. It'll kind of alert you like, hey, the car ahead of you is moving. That's probably the only driver assistance I like between Hyundai and Kia. The forward safety alert is awful. It's so bad. You can be going 2 miles an hour and it'll slam on the brakes thinking you're going to like ram into the person that's 20 feet in front of you. I just can't stand it. The blind spot is okay. The safe exit is kind of cool. If you're parked on a busy street and you open the door, it will actually like alert you and be like, hey, there's a car coming, so just be careful. I'm fine with that one, but As far as the actual like driving dynamics, when you get in the car, just immediately hold down this button, your lane keep assist and all that stuff is gonna go away, and it should stay away, which is nice. You don't have to redo it every time you start the car, and it's just atrocious, so get rid of it. There's one other thing on this car that I'm gonna go over that is so bad, and unfortunately you cannot turn that off every time you turn the car on. It is the auto start stop. You have to actually hit that every time you turn the car on, which sucks, but I think I found a hack to turn that off permanently. Down here you got traction control and your dimming lights. Standard switches here. You can control the stereo on here, do voice commands. And I've noted it a million times before on Hyundai and Kia. It's weird to me. I would think if you're gonna skip track, you would go up to go to the next track and down to go backwards, but it's the opposite. If you want to go to the next song, you go down, and if you want to go backwards, you go up. I don't know why they don't switch it the other way or give you an option to do that. It's weird, but I guess if you drove the car, you would get used to it. So, like I said, this is the standard entertainment system. I think it's like an 8-inch screen. Totally fine and sufficient. I don't need anything else. It does have wireless CarPlay. I'm using my phone right now, so I can't show you, but it was a little weird to set up and wasn't working right. And then I just kind of like restarted my phone, restarted this, deleted all the other phones, and then it works great. Every time it just popped right up. So it is a pretty good system. And if you just spend a little bit more money, you can get a full 10-inch screen that'll go all the way across here. And I'm going to show you how to do that at the end. And of course, you have a backup camera here. Nothing special. It is a little bit blurry, but it gets the job done. And it does have that cross traffic alert, as I noted before. So if a car was coming behind me, it would alert me to that. But how does it drive? Well, surprisingly well, minus one major thing. That auto start stop I mentioned. Right now, the car's off. I'm at a stop sign. I'm about to turn and I want to go, but the car's not on yet. Okay, now it's on. It's jolting. It will literally jolt you. It's one of the worst ones I've ever used. I mean, the only nice thing about it is it doesn't lock up the steering wheel on you. Some of those auto start stops will actually even lock the steering wheel. So at least this doesn't do this, but it is so bad that I had to look online to be like, I'm not the only one that is complaining about this, right? And as I suspected, there's a lot of forums and other places online where people were super annoyed by the auto start stop in this. I actually found a bypass, I think it's like $100 that you can put in, and it'll just trick the car into thinking that the auto start stop is off every time. And it just turned off again. I think that is well worth the investment. I'm gonna put a link down to that below. If you try it, let me know how it works. Other than that, the steering is so light in this car. You can just barely touch the wheel and go wherever you want, which leaves it to have a lot of oversteer, and you're gonna feel it a lot. I wish this car came with all-wheel drive because I think that would really solve the problem. Unfortunately, it is a front wheel drive only. Engine noise, I got it down to the floor right now. You can definitely hear it. I mean, it is just a 4-cylinder, naturally aspirated engine. It's gonna struggle a little bit, and you're gonna get a lot of road noise in here, which I guess is pretty typical. It's a $20,000 car. Take this corner here, I'll show you some of the oversteer. Definitely gonna spin the tires, not in an impressive way. But this car is kind of fun. You can just zip around town. That light steering kind of makes it feel like you're a little hamster driving the car, which I think was the intention when they created this, and it still has the same soul as the original. So if you're looking for a fun commuter car that's pretty good on gas and has lots of space, especially if you have larger kids, or maybe even find yourself hauling around adults pretty often, everyone's gonna be comfortable in this car. And I don't know what else you're gonna find for the $20,000 to like $25,000 price range that is gonna give you this much space in a fun little package. I think this thing is quite the bargain and a lot more impressive than I initially thought when I picked it up, because I still have that hamster mentality in my head, but this thing's a more evolved hamster. All right, so I've convinced you to get a Kia Soul if you made it to this point. Honestly, I think it's a pretty good car. Kia has really stepped up their game. In fact, if I had to choose between this and the Kia Forte I drove a few months ago, which I also really liked, I think I'm going to pick the Soul just for the space alone. It's incredible. Even if you're not totally sold on it yet, go sit in one and I think you'll be surprised how large it is. So, which model should you get? As I said, this is the base model that you saw in this video. The only option was that $500 tech package, which got you the 16-inch wheels. Well worth it alone just for that. You don't want to be rolling on hubcaps, and I think they might even be 15s, a little bit smaller, the steel wheels. And you also get the cross traffic alert, which I said is nice, especially if you park on busy streets. So you can be warned when you open your door and a car comes. And also you get lane change assist and blind spot alert. The lane change assist is garbage in this car. Blind spot alert is always nice to have. So for $500, definitely worth it. That brings you from a base price of $20,500 up to $21,000. Still extremely reasonable for this car. But I think what you really should do is bump up to the next level, the S package. That gets rid of the key, thankfully. You get keyless start. And you also get 16-inch wheels still. The bigger 10-inch screen, so it's going to be a couple inches bigger. Like I said, the standard one is fine, but it's nice to have a bigger screen too. But also you get the wireless charging pad and extra charging ports. You know, for an extra $2,000, I think this is very reasonable, and it might be the sweet spot in the line because, as I said, there's no other engine options. There's no other options for all-wheel drive. It's front-wheel drive, same engine, no matter how much you spend. The only thing I really miss is LED headlights. To get those, you have to bump all the way to the GT trim at $24,000, and then you have to add the tech pack for the GT trim to get the headlights. That's an extra $2,400. That gets you up to $26,500 just to get the good headlights. I think you could convert these pretty easily if you want the LEDs. I've done it on other cars in previous videos. I'll put the link to that. It's super simple, and in most cases, trouble-free, and you get much better vision, especially driving in the city. It helps so much. So I think the sweet spot is that S trim. Right around $23,000 is what you should expect to spend. I got to give Kia props. They did a very nice job on this car. And I think with the way the market is right now, you could probably get a couple $1,000s off that price. So maybe $21,000 to get an S-level Kia Soul, which is a screaming bargain for this car. Just beware that if you're going to have it long-term, past 100,000 miles, those CVT transmissions are a ticking time bomb. But in the meantime, enjoy your little hamster car. If you have one of these for yourself, let me know in the comments below how your experience has been. Or if you're cross-shopping for something else, let me know what else you compared the Kia Soul to down below as well. Make sure to like and subscribe. It's always appreciated. It's at Petrolectric. I will see you on the next review.